Emma Watson cut all ties after uncovering this. Emma Watson spent 12 years growing up inside one of the biggest film franchises in history. She called the people around her family. She trusted them completely. Then she stepped into the real world and found out how wrong she was. By 2020, she had publicly broken with the woman who made her career. By September 2025, that woman called her ignorant in front of millions and revealed a private letter Emma had written trying to repair things. It made everything worse. By March 2026, Emma had made just one quiet public appearance in over a year, attending a pre-Oscars dinner in Beverly Hills, and then vanished again. No new films, no red carpets, no explanation. What exactly did Emma Watson uncover that made her walk away from all of it? Emma Watson was born on April 15, 1990 in Paris, France. Her parents, both lawyers, gave her a calm and ordered early childhood in a quiet suburb outside the city. By the time she was 2, she was already speaking fluent French. Then, in 1995, her parents separated, and 5-year-old Emma crossed into England with her mother, landing in Oxfordshire. The move hit hard. She struggled to connect, carried a quiet sadness into her new school, and spent weekends traveling back and forth to her father in London. That constant movement shaped her into someone more independent than a child should have to be. Around the same time, her teachers noticed she could not sit still. She fidgeted, drifted off, interrupted. At 5, she was diagnosed with ADHD. But what might have held another child back became something she learned to channel. By 6, acting felt like the one place where her restless intensity finally made sense. She joined a small theater school in Oxford, and teachers noticed something unusual immediately. She picked things up fast, moved with confidence, and held a focus that did not match her age. At 7, during a school competition, she stood on stage and recited a poem. Her voice carried across the room. Her pauses landed perfectly. When she finished, she walked away with first prize and, more importantly, the knowledge of what it felt like to own a stage. That feeling stayed. By 1999, casting teams for a new film were visiting schools across Britain, searching not for trained child actors but for natural personalities. Emma's drama teacher pointed them toward her. She had no agent, no experience outside school plays. Yet within days her audition had reached London. When she stepped in and read her lines, something shifted in the room. Even the casting directors admitted later that the moment she walked in, they felt it. Her first audition turned into something extraordinary. She spent nearly a full day repeating scenes again and again, asking for another take each time she felt it was not right. 27 takes in total. The process stretched over months. 8 rounds of auditions, each followed by long waits near a phone she hoped would ring. Then came the moment that tipped everything. The creator of the story watched Emma's screen test and immediately felt she was the right choice. Doors opened. The girl from a school gym in Oxford stepped into something much bigger than she could have imagined. Filming began soon after. She was 10 years old when cameras started rolling. What followed was not just acting. It was growing up in front of millions. Over 10 years, through 8 films, every stage of her life unfolded on screen. Yet she kept her grades high, studying between takes, receiving homework through emails and couriers, sitting with tutors in quiet corners of busy sets. Still, at 16, she came close to walking away. The attention, the expectations, the constant noise became too much. What brought her back was simpler than a contract. It was the letters, the connection, the sense that what she was part of mattered to people. She chose to stay and finish what she had started. Emma Watson was only 24 when she walked into UN headquarters in New York on September 20, 2014 to launch HeForShe, the first major UN campaign asking men and boys to take an active role in fighting gender inequality. What made the speech hit so hard was not the setting or the scale. It was the way she spoke, calmly and plainly, without trying to sound grand. She said she wanted men to take up this mantle so their daughters, sisters, and mothers could be free from prejudice, but also so their sons could have permission to be vulnerable. In that one line, she widened the conversation beyond what most expected. She also did something that gave the speech its real force. She admitted that the word feminism had started to feel dangerous because of how it was discussed. Then she took it back in public. She was not hiding behind slogans. She was saying out loud what many people had felt but never quite found words for. Within 3 days, 100,000 men had signed the pledge. By January 2015, the number had passed 200,000. The video spread everywhere. By 2016, the campaign had pushed governments to expand family leave, companies to commit to pay audits, and universities to strengthen anti-harassment policies. What skeptics had expected to be an inspiring moment that faded within a week had instead forced measurable action across governments, universities, and corporations. But those same words also pulled her into the most painful conflict of her public life. In June 2020, after J.K. Rowling published a roughly 3,600-word essay that many criticized as transphobic, Emma publicly stated that trans people are who they say they are and deserve to live without being constantly questioned. It was direct and unmistakable. The disagreement was no longer with strangers online. It was with the woman whose work had shaped her childhood, her career, and the most famous franchise in the world. The rift deepened. Rowling came to see Emma's stance, along with that of Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint, as a betrayal. Then in March 2022, at the BAFTA Film Awards, Emma opened her remarks with the line, "I'm here for all of the witches." Online, the phrase was instantly read as a pointed message directed at Rowling. Rowling later described that BAFTA moment as the breaking point in their relationship. Deadline. What happened next made everything worse. Emma reportedly asked someone to pass a handwritten note to Rowling, which contained the single sentence, "I'm so sorry for what you're going through." Rowling later revealed that this came at a time when the death, rape, and torture threats against her were at their peak, and that Emma had just publicly added more pressure to the situation, yet believed a one-line personal note would reassure her of fundamental sympathy and kindness. Variety. Then in September 2025, Emma appeared on Jay Shetty's podcast and tried to speak with more humanity. She said she still treasures Rowling and does not want to cancel her out, even while disagreeing deeply with her views, and confirmed she remains open to dialogue. The tone was reflective, almost conciliatory. Rowling rejected it completely. She responded publicly, writing that Emma has so little experience of real life she's ignorant of how ignorant she is, and that Watson would never need a homeless shelter, would never be placed on a mixed-sex public hospital ward, and has a security guard posted outside her bathroom door. At that point, the break no longer looked temporary. It looked permanent. Variety. And while that conflict was unfolding publicly, a quieter story had already been taking shape. After wrapping Greta Gerwig's Little Women at the end of 2018, Emma more or less vanished from acting entirely. For someone of her level, that was startling. Hollywood expected her to move into more serious adult roles and build on that momentum. Instead, silence. The reasons she later gave were blunt and hard to ignore. She said the promotional side of filmmaking was soul-destroying, that the balance between the actual art and the selling of that art had become badly distorted, and that she simply did not miss selling things. She described the sensory overload of fame as making it nearly impossible to hold a normal conversation, saying it made her feel like an insane person. She also described the emotional mismatch of entering the wider film industry after a decade on Harry Potter sets. She had grown up expecting connection. What she found instead was an environment where people were focused on their character, their career, and their next opportunity. She was looking for friendship. Many around her were looking for momentum. Variety fortune. Rather than spiral, she rebuilt from the ground up. In 2023, she began a master's degree in creative writing at Oxford, and has since reportedly started a PhD program, describing writing and making art as the best therapy she found for reshaping her life after acting. In April 2023, she and her brother Alex launched Renace, a sustainable gin brand made from recycled grape skins and certified carbon neutral, which by January 2025 had raised $6 million in investment. Luxus Magazine Wikipedia. The public glimpses have been rare. In March 2026, she appeared at a W Magazine and Dior pre-Oscars dinner in Beverly Hills, posing with Priyanka Chopra, Macaulay Culkin, and Tracee Ellis Ross, reigniting speculation about a return to acting. But the larger pattern has not changed. The machine keeps turning without her. She seems, at 35, to have found something she values more than the fame she built. Yahoo! When asked about stepping away, she told British Vogue that she is glad she made the choice because it gave her a feeling of having her own voice, her own creative space, and sovereignty in a way she did not have before. She described herself as the happiest and healthiest she has ever been. From the outside, her most celebrated years might have looked like the height of her life. But from the inside, they appear to have carried a quiet fracture she spent years trying to name. Yahoo! What she uncovered was not a single scandal or a hidden secret. It was a system. A system that asked her to stay small enough to be manageable, public enough to be profitable, and grateful enough not to question any of it. She questioned it anyway. She said what she believed about trans rights and paid for it with a relationship she had spent 12 years building. She walked away from press tours and red carpets and paid for it with her position in Hollywood. And through a driving ban, a gin company, a master's degree in Oxford, and a handful of quiet public appearances, she seems to have arrived somewhere the industry never intended for her to reach. A life that belongs to her. That is why her story still holds attention. It is not the story of a celebrity who got tired of fame. It is the story of someone who kept following the logic of her own words, even when they led her somewhere cold, even when they cost her something real, and even when the world that had made her famous decided she was no longer playing by the rules.